Hi BookTube, I'm here today with another book review. Sorry that I've been absent from BookTube for the past few weeks, but midterms and sometimes life happens surprisingly, and um, unfortunately I do have things outside of reading that I have to do in my life. But one book that I have finished recently and that I wanted to review is Vagina Monologues by Ensler. You can, yeah. See, now the first thing to remember about this is that it's meant to be performed, so it's not necessarily meant to be read, kind of like Shakespeare, so you aren't quite getting the full effect when you read it, but it still is a great, um, sort of a great thing to read. So when you think of like iconic feminist works texts, you think of the Vagina Monologues purely because it has the word vagina in it, and I think the Vagina Monologues has been one of the most notarized and the also most mocked of all the feminist texts, and it's really about wanting to reclaim, um, like possession and ownership of women's genitals. So it's all about like wanting to sort of take away the mask, not the mask, but the take away the veil that shrouds women's sexuality and shrouds their biological needs, and so that we can talk about it open and frankly and really and not be ashamed. And that goes for women and men. And so the thing is that and this is actually too has practical concerns. Like the book, it does have some like rather fanciful parts. Like if your vagina um, was dressed up, what would it wear? So things that you like aren't normally think. But it's kind of but Eve Ensler's point, I think, I can't claim to speak for her, is to kind of again remove the veil that just impedes the conversation about women's health and women's sexuality and women's physiology. I mean, if you think about even like um, I mean, I live in the U.S. and which is like not particularly great at gender equality, but in other parts of the world as well, there are so many like women die because they don't know that they have to get Pap smears, or the women or part of the huge reason why abortion is illegal is because people have no idea how women's health works. Not to say that everyone needs to have an abortion, but the biological realities just fly over people's head. And also too, we all know how absolutely terrible sex education is in the United States. So it's really an attempt to sort of like reclaim ownership. And yeah, so again, it's quite a quick read. Like it's not that many pages, and it's quite, as you can tell, like the pages are very, not tiny print or anything like that, and quite spaced out. And again, because it's meant to be performed, this edition that I have, well, this was published in 1998 originally, and I have an edition that has a foreword by Gloria Steinem, who I adore. And she talks about how, in the foreword, I came from the down there generation. That is, those were the words, spoken rarely in a hushed voice, that the women in my family used to refer to all female genitalia, internal or external. It wasn't that they were ignorant of the terms vagina, labia, vulva, and clitoris. On the contrary, they were trained to be teachers and probably had more access to information than most. So the thing is that it's very, yeah, and then she says, symbolic or real, it's all devoted to controlling the power that resides in the female body. And yeah, it's all about reclaiming that. And so again, not necessarily a very serious book, but it does explore serious themes like masturbation and birth and sexual assault and homosexual relationships. And it's all about, yeah, again, like women embracing their sexuality and being able to talk about what happens to them. And I would be I would be a bit regretful if I didn't mention that, technically speaking, when she says the vagina monologue, she's really referring to the vulva in terms of physiological body parts, because the vagina is just the part that is like inside, and the vulva encompasses all of things. But I mean, that's a small nitpick that I have. But so ultimately, um, there were, and so the way that Eve Ensler got these stories was and their stories that she had from real women, was traveling around the world and talking to them about their vaginas and talking to them about their experience um, and about their perceptions. And so these are stories that she's basically like um, that she's like recorded and that she's only slightly altered, and ones that she's thought that she should share. And so, and again, because this is meant to be performed, this is something that, you know, a lot of colleges or theaters will do, and it's just a bunch of monologues by some women about talking about it. And so there's a lot of um, um, and the thing is, so some of the stuff is again quite fanciful, and you might think like, you know, like, oh, what clothes would my vagina wear? Why do I care? But again, it is very, it also all about like reclaiming power. And again, too, there are some very deep monologues in here that really like um, touched me to my core, at least. And I, and it's really something that I think um, I actually, so I read this for the first time recently, but I had heard like 75% of the audiobook with a friend a few years ago. And this is one of those things that I'll read it at the time or I listen to it and I didn't realize how much it was going to affect me, because it was something that I would continually refer back to constantly, because like the only experiences I have of anyone talking about like the clitoris or whatever in literature is from the Vagina Monologues, or the only actual sort of poetic experience of sexual assault is in the Vagina Monologues, and the only experience about sexuality post menopause is in the Vagina Monologues. And so it's really something that I think you don't realize at the time, but you will come to see, um, because it's the only not just piece of literature, but it's the only piece of media I think that really talks about these themes. So that's why, you know, I'm really glad I bought this. There's some pieces that I want to read as well. Um, like again, it's just I'm not an actress, so I'm probably going to butcher these uh, these monologues, but I can't. But I still am gonna try. But just keep in mind that it's better when it's done by someone else. Um, Um, so this is a piece, this is the final piece in the book, and it's I was there in the room for Shiva. I was there when her vagina opened. We were all there, her mother, her husband, and I, and the nurse from Ukraine with her whole hand up there in her vagina, feeling and turning with rubber glove of as she talked casually to us, like she was turning on a loaded faucet. I was there in the room when the contractions made her crawl on all fours, made unfamiliar moans leak out of her pores, and still there after hours when she just screamed suddenly, wild, her arms striking at the electric air. I was there when her vagina changed from a shy, sexual hole to an archaeological tunnel, a sacred vessel, a Venetian canal, a deep well with a tiny stuffed child in it, waiting to be rescued. I saw the colors of her vagina. They changed. Saw the bruised broken blue, the blistering tomato red, the gray pink, the dark. Saw the blood like perspiration along the edges. Saw the yellow, white liquid, the shit. The clots pushing out all the holes, pushing harder and harder. Saw through the hole, the baby's head, scratches of black hair. Saw it just there behind the bone, a hard round memory, as the nurse from Ukraine kept turning and turning her slippery hand. I was there when each of us, her mother and I, held a leg and spread her wide, pushing with all our strength against her pushing, and her husband sternly counting 1, 2, 3, telling her to focus, harder. We looked into her then. We couldn't get our eyes out of that place. We forget the vagina, all of us. What else would explain our lack of awe, our lack of wonder? I was there when the doctor reached in with Alice in Wonderland spoons, and there as her vagina became a wide operatic mouth, singing with all its strength, first the little head, then the gray flopping arm, then the fast swimming body, swimming quickly into our weeping arms. I was there later when I just turned and faced her vagina. I stood and let myself see her all sp- I stood and let myself see her all spread, completely exposed, mutilated, swollen, and torn, bleeding all over the doctor's hands who was calmly sewing her there. I stood, and as I stared, her vagina suddenly became a wide, red, pulsing heart. The heart is capable of sacrifice. So is the vagina. The heart is able to forgive and repair. It can change its shape to let us in. It can expand to let us out. So can the vagina. It can ache for us and stretch for us, die for us, and bleed us into this difficult, wondrous world. So can the vagina. I was there in the room. I remember. Yeah, so I just thought that was really beautiful, and that was one piece that really touched me. There were several others that also, but this one was the concluding monologue. But there were others as well, like one that I had first heard when I was listening to it as an audiobook with my friend. It was on sexual assault, and that was one that has stayed with me for so long, and just the way that it's described and how haunting it is. And I really can't. And again, too, this is something that you might read, and it's quite a quick and easy read. It might take only an hour or 2 hours, and you think, oh, that was good. But it will be something that, or at least for me, I constantly refer back to, and that because it really is one of its kind, and eh, yeah, I just yeah, I really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Um, and so I don't know. Maybe I don't know. If anyone else wants to hear the poem on sexual assault, let me know in the comments, and maybe I'll record another video about it. But it's really haunting, and um, I don't want to just bring it up. I want to give it the gravitas that it deserves. But I highly recommend that you read the Vagina Monologues, because even if you don't like it, it's definitely one of a kind, and I think it's something that, yeah, it's one of a kind, and it really touches each person that they read. All right, again, I give it 4 out of 5 stars. Thank you guys for watching. I'm planning on filming the Monster Mash book tag and my review for Independent People by Haldor Laxness soon, so stay tuned for that.